Here's the top 6 reasons you're not sleeping, especially if you're in perimenopause. Number 1, progesterone decline, which is usually accompanied by anxiety, racing thoughts, trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. Number 2 is estrogen fluctuations. That can be tied to melatonin. What we often see is night sweats as well. You can't fall asleep. You can't stay asleep because you're so hot and sweaty. Number 3 is cortisol spiking at night. Cortisol should only spike during the day, yet it's spiking at night. We're going to talk about why for sure. Number 4 is blood sugar crashes, especially those happening at that 2 to 3 a.m. window that's waking you up. Number 5 is histamine surges or hidden causes of inflammation. And the last one, you have ADHD. Welcome to the Dr. Brighten Show. I'm your host, Dr. Jolene Brighten. This is going to be a 2-part episode where I'm breaking down the 6 reasons you're not sleeping, especially if you're in perimenopause or menopause, and exactly what to do about them. We're going to talk about hormone shifts. We're going to talk about stress. We're going to talk about ADHD. We're even going to talk about how your gut might be involved. And I'm going to touch on hormone replacement therapy, along with lifestyle changes and targeted support that I personally use and that I recommend for my patients. Now, you're going to want to make sure you subscribe because you're going to want to catch part 1 and part 2. Because all of these things are connected and you're going to find tips that are going to help you throughout this 2-part series on sleep. Now, before we jump in, I'd really appreciate if you could go and leave me a review. Wherever you're listening right now, you can go click those 5 stars. It means the world to me. It's a super easy way to support the work I do, and it can help women who are searching for this information actually find a resource that can help them that they can trust. So with that said, let's jump in. Number 1 we're going to go into is progesterone decline and the racing thoughts, anxiety, and insomnia that follows. So the very first symptoms that we honestly see in perimenopause is not hot flashes. It's usually sleep disturbances that are happening before your period or worsening PMS. Now, we typically will see perimenopause symptoms happening. Their onset's going to be about age 35 to 45, somewhere in that range. It's usually the 7 to 10 years before you go into menopause, but it could be like 15 years. That's totally what some women go through. I mean, some women only have perimenopause for a couple of years. But what I want you to understand is that any woman during her reproductive years can have progesterone issues. We're going to talk specifically about how do you know if this is you and you're having progesterone issues so that you can identify that. But what I want to explain is that if you have acute stress, or chronic stress, the body can shift to cortisol production, and it's in favor of cortisol production at the expense of progesterone production. And now we are having issues with our sleep, our PMS, maybe having even mood symptoms coming up. I'll definitely talk about solutions, but I want to talk a little bit more about why progesterone is so important for sleep and give you more of the background information that we should have gotten when we were honestly in grammar school. So progesterone is our calming anti-anxiety hormone. If you caught my episode with Dr. Carrie Jones, you know how important it is in the GABA system. I'm going to talk more about that. So progesterone's only made following ovulation, and it's by a structure called the corpus luteum. So we need to ovulate. You need to know that. In your late 30s, 40s, ovulation may become sporadic, or that corpus luteum might start failing, which means less progesterone production. And that's sometimes even if your cycle appears normal. And that's because low progesterone might look like you're spotting just a few days before your period, or you're having sleep trouble 2, 3, 5, 10 days sometimes before your period. It just depends on your phase of life and how bad your stress is and how poor that progesterone production is. But your period may be coming still in like a 27-day window or every 30-day window and look normal. And here's the other thing that I think you should know about being in perimenopause is that progesterone goes first, Estrogen doesn't. And so you might have excess estrogen symptoms like irritability, feeling hot and sweaty, but low progesterone. And so you're not getting that calming effect. Now, as I mentioned, progesterone is involved with GABA. Progesterone gets metabolized to allopregnanolone. That supports GABA in our brain. GABA helps us relax, fall asleep, chill out, not be so anxious, not have ruminating thoughts, like brain shuts up. We like that. So as progesterone declines, often before your cycle becomes irregular, if you're in perimenopause, you may notice anxiety, intrusive thoughts, your mental breaks are gone. And again, this is very common in perimenopause. If it's happening before perimenopause, that shouldn't be considered normal at all. Now, how do you know if this is you? How do you know if progesterone's your problem? You wake up feeling more anxious or irritable the days and nights leading up to your period. It's usually within a 5 to 7 day window before your period. It might just be a couple days before, but like I said, it could be a longer period as well. If you're having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, waking feeling rested before your period, even when you're tired, looking at progesterone. If you're exhausted because of this sleep issue, like the week before your period, and you're like, I just can't get sleep because we usually need more sleep before our period in that luteal phase, then we're looking at progesterone. And if your luteal phase is shortening, your luteal phase should never be shorter than 10 days during your reproductive years. If your period, how do you know? Well, your period's coming sooner. So if your period, it was 28 days, very few of us have 28-day cycles, but if it was 28 days and now it's like 24 days, something's up with your progesterone. Now, if you're like, in your 40s, okay, we're probably in perimenopause. But if you're in your 20s, absolutely not. We need to check in at what's going on. I'll mention some things that can be a problem, but I just want to make it clear that the shortening of the period, the irregular periods in the perimenopause year is considered normal. The sleepless nights are normal if you don't have enough progesterone, but it doesn't mean we just accept it, okay? It doesn't mean that we're going to be like, oh, I'm just not going to sleep, and that's just how it is. But if you're not in your perimenopausal years, you're younger than age 35 and your cycle is shortening, you're starting to have all these problems during that luteal phase, like the PMS, the breast tenderness, the irritability, the insomnia, the anxiety, the racing thoughts, like that is definitely not normal and we need to do something about it. So let me get to the point. What can we do about it? So before we talk about hormone replacement therapy, we are going to talk about that in this episode. I want to talk about working with your body while your ovaries still have the capacity to ovulate and make hormones. You haven't run out of eggs yet, okay? So there's 3 areas that we want to address if low progesterone is the problem. Number 1 is manage stress. 2 is our sleep and light timing to support ovulation. And 3 is nutrients to support ovulation in the corpus luteum so it can do its job. So let's get into the 3 of these. So I want to start with managing stress first. Stress, as I mentioned before, hijacks your body's resources and can suppress ovulation, cause the body to prioritize cortisol over progesterone production. So we have to talk about managing stress. If we have chronic cortisol elevation, then that can interfere with your brain's hormone signaling to your ovaries. And I want you to keep in mind, if you don't ovulate, you don't make any progesterone. It's the only way you're going to make progesterone, which is why we don't have progesterone when we get into those late stage perimenopause and we're out of eggs. We can't ovulate anymore. Now, if you have something like primary ovarian insufficiency or functional hypothalamic amenorrhea, then you're not ovulating at an age younger than the perimenopause years, and that's a problem. We have to work on stress because we know that with functional hypothalamic amenorrhea, that's usually we don't eat enough, we overexercise, we've got to balance out that stressor in our life. With primary ovarian insufficiency, we don't call it ovarian failure anymore. It used to be called premature ovarian failure. We don't call it that anymore because some women will spontaneously start ovulating again. But with that one, we don't know why that there are women that have primary ovarian insufficiency, but we do know that a small portion, it is linked to autoimmune disease. So if you are before age 45 You lose your period altogether. You need to know why. 45 is an acceptable age to be in menopause. 12 consecutive months of no period, you are in menopause. But before age 45, we need to know why, and we need to address that. Now, I want you to understand that some women, this will be normal for them based on their genetics. But for the majority, it's not normal. And there are doctors out there who are like, you're 41. You must be in menopause. We always want to know why, because if it's something like an autoimmune disease, it's something like chronic stress, nutrient deficiencies, something going on, we want to address that. And we don't ever want to be without our hormones before it is actually our time to be in menopause, because we know based on the research, especially on those who have oophorectomies, the removal of their ovaries, the younger they have that done, the higher the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. Like we don't want to have these brain conditions. Okay, so going back to the sleep part, right? You're like, I'm here just to hear about sleep. So I talked about working on stress. I want to give you some specific support strategies to implement. Firstly, we got the parasympathetic, the rest and digest of our nervous system, and the sympathetic, fight, freeze, run away. We want to focus. So stress is all about that fighting side of things. We want to focus on the parasympathetic. Walking, breath work, creative hobbies, coloring. We want to do things daily to nurture the parasympathetic activity. Breath work is so tremendous for this. We also want to make sure that we're getting enough calories that match our exercise output. Yes, you can be in a caloric deficit if you're trying to lose weight, but anything extreme, and you may lose ovulatory function, progesterone production, and your period altogether. Something else I encourage my patients to do is to eat foods rich in vitamin C, peppers, strawberries, citrus fruit, and foods rich in vitamin B5. So sweet potatoes, avocado, fish. And consider bringing on things like adaptogenic herbs. If you're not familiar with adaptogenic herbs, these help you have a more regulated stress response, like not over the top freak out. And if you're not familiar with these, let me give you some examples of ones I love. So when I think about energy, having a good amount of energy, I think about rhodiola and eleutherococcus. When I think about like soothing, chill out, don't overreact, asparagus racemosus and holy basil. Ashwagandha is one you probably have heard of. It's a really fantastic adaptogen. It really helps with energy, feeling calm, not feeling just overstimulated during the day. I like it personally, both during the day and in the evening, just because of how it's very just like hush cortisol, be cool cortisol. Now, the other thing that I would encourage is sleep and light timing. So inconsistent sleep, late nights, or just sitting in front of bright screens, that kind of light exposure can throw off your internal timing system and your hormones as well. So if you caught the gut health episode, the gut hormone episode, we talked about clocks. We talked about your gut clock. We talked about circadian rhythm. You probably guessed we were going to talk about circadian rhythm today. And yes, that's important. But it's also important to understand that all of your organs have their own clock as well. Like your ovaries even have their own clock. Now, when it comes to sleep specifically, there's something called the SCN. It's the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain. It's a master clock. It helps regulate sleep, the whole sleep-wake cycle altogether. It's also involved in some of our hormonal rhythms. And it's, I think, super important to understand that your light exposure can disrupt how the brain is orchestrating the hormones it secretes, even like LH and FSH, which are key hormones needed for ovulation and progesterone production. After we ovulate, LH is going to pulse to keep that corpus luteum going so that we produce progesterone. So if we have a disruption in our circadian rhythms, that can alter the hormonal cascade It can contribute to anovulatory cycles if the disruption is really bad, or even luteal phase defects. So that's when we have less than 10 days of the luteal phase. I was talking about that before, the short luteal phase. And so that's a low progesterone phase, right? When it should be a high extended progesterone phase. So if we're getting artificial light at night, like exposure to our screens, like our phones, our television, that can disrupt melatonin production. Melatonin's involved in our reproductive health. In fact, it's an antioxidant that protects our ovaries. So we don't want to mess with our melatonin. Yes, it helps us go to sleep at night, but it's also very protective of our cells against free radicals. So if you are exposing yourself to light and that's disrupting melatonin, keep in mind that can disrupt your brain hormones orchestrating ovulation and hormone production. We see this most notably in night shift work. So women who have night shift work or, jet lag or erratic sleep schedules, there's a higher prevalence of anovulatory cycles. That means lack of ovulation, shorter luteal phases, and we even see infertility can be an issue. If you have a short luteal phase, that's going to lead to infertility because fertilization happens in the fallopian tubes. Then once egg and sperm meets, it rapidly dividing cells, and that little ball of cells goes dividing, becomes an embryo, and then lands in the uterus. And it's going to land there sometimes around like day 8, day 9 after ovulation. And if by day 10, your corpus luteum is failing, there's no time there for implantation, for beta HCG to rise and to signal to the ovary, keep going with progesterone. So if you've been struggling with cycles where the luteal phase is less than 10 days and trouble conceiving, look at what's going on with your progesterone. Start to implement some of these things. Okay, tangent from the sleep stuff. Let me bring it back to sleep support. Now, if you want to test your progesterone to know for sure, like progesterone's an issue for you, you can test 5 to 7 days following ovulation on a 28-day cycle. We say day 19 to 21. And you can see if your progesterone's insufficient, that could be what is leading to your sleep problems. So to support natural progesterone production, we want to prioritize a regular wake time, get 10 to 20 minutes of sunlight within an hour of waking, avoid bright screens at 9 p.m., or wear blue light blocking glasses. And this is all to work with the circadian rhythm that will affect your ovaries in producing progesterone. Now, the third thing we can do for progesterone support is to look at our nutrient intake. Key nutrients that we want to look at: zinc. That's going to support your FSH, LH production from the brain, ovulation, corpus luteum function, and it's also important for progesterone receptor sensitivity. So when the hormone's secreted, it's got to dock on cells. So we want to support the receptors that are on the cells. Vitamin B6, you may have heard me talk about this one before. It's fantastic. Supports progesterone synthesis. B6 deficiency is actually associated with a shorter luteal phase. So if you're that person having less than 10 days, or you're someone who's having PMS symptoms, look at vitamin B6. Magnesium. When do we never love magnesium? We always love magnesium. Magnesium can help with calming our nervous system, so it can help on the cortisol stress side of things, and it's also needed for hormone metabolism. So if we want to lower our cortisol fast, we want to be looking at quality sleep, adaptogenic herbs, bringing in magnesium, and if we want to get those progesterone levels up, everything I just talked about, and then also maybe considering Vitex. And Vitex is thought to act on the brain to support that LH production so that when the corpus luteum ovulates, it's like, keep going, make our progesterone. So those are the key things that I would look at for helping with the progesterone aspect of why we're not getting enough sleep. I know I mentioned supplements, my adrenal support and my women's hormone balance supplement. There's actually a period problems kit altogether. I will link in the show notes. If you want to purchase those, great. I'll give you 15% off. If you don't, use the label as a guide on what to look for in terms of dosages. The last thing I'll mention too, while I'm thinking about supplements, is myo-inositol. We often use that to, especially for women with PCOS who have anovulatory or regular ovulation, we will often use myo-inositol for ovarian function, for ovulation support, for insulin resistance, but it also can help with sleep. So myo-inositol is another one to consider. And it's a nice stack if you're having ovulatory issues and sleep issues to be like, let me just add this on to everything that I'm doing in terms of my lifestyle. And of course, your diet. And if you're wondering what foods to eat to support progesterone, we want to focus on mineral-rich whole foods, seeds. You can use it as part of seed cycling, leafy greens, lentils, liver, or you can consider a liver supplement. If you want a style of eating that is going to support you in optimizing your hormones and is anti-inflammatory, drbrighten.com/plan. It's free. There's no liver in the plan, just so in case you're worried, but there is a ton of tasty food to support your hormones. Now, let's talk about the progesterone HRT. If you've been tracking your cycle and you're working on lifestyle strategies, but you're still struggling with sleep, anxiety, PMS, you're over age 35, this might be a good time to consider bioidentical progesterone. Now, as long as your ovaries are working, I love doing all the natural stuff, but sometimes using oral micronized progesterone, which we take at night, can be super helpful because it has those sedative effects and it will affect the GABA pathways in the brain. Not topical, not progestin, oral bioidentical progesterone. So this is especially helpful for women who are in perimenopause. If they're still cycling, but they ovulate inconsistently, or their corpus luteum is just not doing its job. And if you're still cycling, it can be used cyclically, like 10 to 14 days per month to mimic your natural rhythms in your period, if that's still present. But if you're not cycling, then you can just take it every day. There's no reason, if you're no longer having periods, to only do it for half the month. So when would you consider using this? You're skipping periods, you're not ovulating consistently. PMS is insane. It is just off the chain and it's really interfering with your life. You're having significant anxiety. If that anxiety is happening in the weeks before your period, I would consider progesterone over anti-anxiety medication because it is effective, and anxiety medication isn't going to be effective if progesterone is your problem. It might take the edge off, but we got to address what is actually going on. If you've ruled out other causes of sleep disruption, natural support hasn't moved the needle, then we want to consider using progesterone hormone replacement therapy. And while I'm going over these 6 reasons people are not sleeping, I just want to remind you, sleep apnea is real. Not getting enough oxygen to your brain while you sleep is bad for your health, and that's a good reason to consider a sleep study. Remember, I'm a doctor, I'm not your doctor, and we may need to rule out other things. And if we've ruled out all of those things, and it's it's just happening before my period, or I'm in perimenopause, I'm not sleeping anymore, let's look at that progesterone hormone replacement therapy. Okay, let's go to the number 2 reason why you might not be sleeping, which is estrogen fluctuations. Those impact sleep a lot of times because we're too hot to sleep. We're sweating. We got night sweats. We got hot flushes, but estrogen's also tied to melatonin. So here's what we're going to cover in this section. How to know if this is an issue. We'll definitely talk about when to consider using hormone replacement therapy or menopause hormone therapy. And we're going to do a deep dive into natural approaches, non-estrogen alternatives that support estrogen balance and symptom relief. So if you're not a candidate for hormone replacement therapy, or you are just not wanting it, we'll talk about some other options. And by the way, menopause hormone therapy That's a term we use in menopausal women. And the reason is because we're not trying to replace it to the levels they were pre-menopause. But hormone replacement therapy, I often use that term because as many times as I say menopause hormone therapy, people are always like, oh, do you mean hormone replacement therapy? Like, yeah, same. But with hormone replacement therapy, you can call it either or, but with hormone replacement therapy in medicine, we often think of that before menopause because we are trying to replace your hormones to the levels they should be. If you're post-menopause, menopause hormone therapy, but guess what? We're using all the same stuff. Anyhow, okay, let's get into the sleep. So why does estrogen fluctuating disrupt your sleep? So the thing to know about estrogen is it plays a major role in regulating your core body temperature, but also neurotransmitters like serotonin. And in other episodes, we talk about dopamine, acetylcholine, all those things. But it's also interacting with melatonin. All of these are critical for deep, stable sleep. So actually going to sleep. And that's the thing. Sleep isn't just about being in bed for 8 hours. Sleep is about waking up feeling rested and restored, getting the right quality sleep. Now, postpartum, we can definitely have trouble with estrogen. If you've ever had a baby and you start sweating, that can also be disrupting our sleep. In perimenopause, estrogen doesn't just gradually decline. That'd be super sweet, but it doesn't. It spikes, it crashes, and it does it all unpredictably. And that creates temperature dysregulation. It also creates mood instability, and it can disrupt your circadian rhythm. I think it's really important to understand if you have functional hypothalamic amenorrhea. Actually, if you're heading into functional hypothalamic amenorrhea, you're under eating, you're overtraining, you could start having these hot flashes, night sweats as well. So with estrogen fluctuating, night sweats, early waking, fragmented sleep, you may even try to fall asleep and maybe go to sleep easily, but you don't stay asleep and you're waking up a lot. These things are all par for the course. So how do you know if this is you? If you're waking up hot, drenched in sweat, sheets are wet, even if the room is cool, even if you've got the best pajamas in the world, you probably have estrogen problems. If you're noticing new mood swings, vaginal dryness, more fine lines, wrinkles, droopy breast, like breasts start to sag, that can signal to low estrogen issues. If your sleep has gotten worse after you've missed a period or your cycle is having changes, start looking at estrogen. And if you notice brain fog, new anxiety, and mood swings happening, again, anxiety can be related to progesterone, but that's usually happening just before our period. If anxiety is kind of consistent overall, that could be estrogen. So when should we consider estrogen hormone replacement therapy? If your symptoms are severe, then I would definitely recommend talking to your doctor about a low dose topical or transdermal estrogen, because it can be seriously a game changer for your sleep, for hot flashes, for night sweats, for brain fog. And when I say transdermal estrogen, patches, gels, cream, these things that bypass the liver, mimic your body's own estrogen. We don't have to worry about the clot risk as much like we do with the birth control pill. It is different than the birth control pill. It's a lower dose than what we would use in the birth control pill. The other thing about estrogen is that it can help with that thermoregulation. So it can stabilize your body temperature. And in addition to that, it's going to support serotonin and melatonin. So we're going to have better mood, better sleep. If you don't know, the conversion goes serotonin to melatonin. So you make serotonin, then you make melatonin from that. And I would also say that if you are going to use estrogen, consider using it with oral micronized progesterone. If you have a uterus, if you have a history of endometriosis, if you're just I want to feel less anxious and sleep. And what a lot of patients that I use estrogen with say is that their early morning waking gets a lot better. So they're no longer waking at 4, 5, 6. Maybe you have to wake at 6, but they're not waking up before it's time. A lot of women experience more mood stability when they're taking estrogen. So if you have mood instability, before your hormones dip in your cycle, or Perhaps what you're finding is that your cycles have become irregular and now your mood's more unstable. Good time to start looking at estrogen. But let's also talk about natural strategies that support estrogen balance and sleep. So whether or not you're a candidate for hormone therapy or you just want to explore natural options first, I want to talk through how to work with your body to ease the estrogen-related symptoms, but with the caveat that this is only while your ovaries still have the capacity to make estrogen. So we want to look at supporting our estrogen metabolism through our liver and our gut. Estrogen is cleared first through the liver, phase 1 and 2 detox, then through the gut via the estrobolome. If you're having poor clearance through the liver, or you have dysbiosis, we talked about in the gut hormone episode, then we can start to have a dysregulated estrogen, then we start having night sweats, and we start having sleep issues. So how can we support that? We can eat cruciferous vegetables, cooked cruciferous vegetables, making sure we're getting plenty of fiber. If you grab that drbrighten.com/plan meal plan, you're going to get plenty of fiber. And we want to make sure that we're hydrating every day. Now, the goal isn't to drop estrogen super fast or to be trying to push clearance through the liver. It's just to support what your body does naturally. As I talked about in the gut health episode, calcium D-glucarate is another one that helps with both the liver and the gut with clearing estrogen. And we might want to consider probiotics to support the estrobolome. That will help lower the reabsorption of estrogen in the gut, and not necessarily that it's going to cause you not to reabsorb estrogen, but it's going to help your body modulate it more appropriately. We do want some reabsorption, especially in late phase perimenopause and menopause. So if we make estrogen, we do want to reabsorb some of that if we're getting low on it. So supporting your estrobolome, your gut health, your detox pathways, definitely important. We also want to promote serotonin and melatonin naturally. Estrogen is going to support serotonin production. And as I said, serotonin is converted to melatonin at night. When your estrogen drops, you're going to make less serotonin. You're going to make less melatonin. You're going to struggle to sleep. So how can we support all of that? Back to magnesium again. Definitely great, but vitamin B6 helps here as well. So magnesium, vitamin B6 is going to help your stress, going to help your progesterone, also going to help here in supporting your serotonin. And with that, I would say you want magnesium glycinate because that glycinate molecule is going to further promote sleep. The other thing you can do is eat tryptophan-rich foods, pumpkin seeds, turkey. We all know about that one, right? If you're eating that at dinner, that is a building block for serotonin. Then you're going to convert that into melatonin. And then again, I'm going to say this so many times, reduce bright light and light at night. We want to aim for morning sunlight, but dim all the lights in the evening. I even have my patients who struggle with sleep go by candlelight like once a week, and they're like, I got the best sleep. Plus, it was just like super fun. Like some people are like, it was romantic. Other people are like, it was like I was camping. Either way, worth a try. Now, I talked a bit about supporting your nervous system in the progesterone section, but I want to say again that we got to support the nervous system, but also thermoregulation. So estrogen helps with our nervous system modulation and resiliency to stress. It helps with inflammation as well. And without it, we are prone to mood issues, to sleep fragmentation, heat dysregulation, getting overheated at night. So before bed, I would recommend deep breathing or somatic exercises to help you unwind before bed. If you're on YouTube right now, after you watch this video, look up somatic exercises. Keep your environment cool is a must. Lightweight sheets, fans, air conditioners, cooling mattress pad, whatever it takes. Try to make that room as cool as possible and yourself as cool as possible. I would also say, considering things like passion flower, L-theanine at night, this can help promote more deep, restful sleep. That's something that you'll find in my adrenal calm formula at drbrightenessentials.com. Go ahead, you can buy that one, or you can check out what's on the label. No pressure ever to buy my stuff, okay? Now, when it comes to melatonin, Melatonin can be helpful orally for helping you fall asleep if you've got jet lag, circadian rhythm that's like misaligned. But I just want to caution you in using melatonin because for some women, it can make them groggy, it can worsen their mood, and higher dose is not better. So we usually look at like 0.3 to 1 milligrams because that's often more effective than higher dosages. We sometimes use higher dosages if you have endometriosis, if you're going through fertility treatments, you have infertility, you have like chronic inflammation from a chronic condition. But for sleep, we want to use that lower dose. Now, there are some herbal alternatives to estrogen, but I'm going to tell you, they don't work as well as hormone replacement therapy. But if you can't or you don't want to use hormone replacement therapy, certain herbs have been shown to help modulate estrogen receptors and ease symptoms. So black cohosh, that can help with reducing hot flashes in some women. We talked about rhodiola before. That's going to support your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis. That can help with improving mood and energy. Some women find red clover helpful. It does contain phytoestrogens that may support vasomotor symptoms like the hot flashes for some women. But I just want you to understand, like, these herbs are not one size fits all. Not all herbs are safe for everyone, especially if you have hormone sensitive conditions. You always want to check with your provider. And you can also talk to your provider about other medications that might help with sleep. So if you're like, I'm trying all these things, but I just really need to get to sleep. Sometimes there's, people are opting for short-term of low-dose SSRIs, or they are, reaching for sleep medications in the short term. I personally always want to try to optimize sleep naturally because that has no side effects. But in some cases, sleep gets so bad that you do need to bring on like what we call like the big guns in medicine. And I don't want you to feel ashamed or like a failure because you've tried everything and it's not working. And sometimes we use sleep medications while we get HRT working as well, and then we're able to come off those things. So again, no one size fits all. You got to do what is best for you and what works best for you. The last part of this episode is going to be all about cortisol, and we're going to talk about how to lower cortisol or at least get it regulated. So cortisol is your main stress hormone if you don't know, but you probably know by now. And I want to talk to you about why it might be waking you up in the middle of the night and exactly what you can do about it. So this can happen at any stage of your life. What we see if you're in perimenopause is declining estrogen, progesterone. They remove some of the natural buffering against stress hormones like cortisol. And just like they help with our stress response. So if you're postpartum, this could be happening to you as well. If you have a really stressful job, if you have had a major life event, that can be disrupting your cortisol as well. So I just want you to also understand that if you're in a phase of life where you don't have your estrogen and progesterone, and then you add chronic stress or like over-exercising or under-eating, you can flip the natural rhythm. And instead of being calm at night and alert in the morning, your cortisol spikes at night when it should be low, and then you're up and you're like, what's going on here? So when cortisol spikes in the evening, it's going to disrupt sleep, raise our blood sugar, and it's putting your nervous system in a fight or flight state, that sympathetic that we talked about before. So how do you know if cortisol is your problem? You feel tired during the day, but you're wired at night. You have the classic wired and tired feeling where your brain is amped up, but your body is exhausted when your head's on the pillow. If you're waking up the same time every night and your thoughts are racing and you're feeling like anxious or in a panic, that could be related to cortisol. But what we often see with cortisol is you're having trouble shutting down in the evening. Even with the best sleep hygiene, you're just not getting to bedtime, and you get to bedtime, but you're like, I just can't fall asleep. If you wake up with morning headaches, that might also be a sign that you have HPA axis dysregulation, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis dysregulation. So what can you do? Anchor your circadian rhythm with consistent wake times and morning sunlight. So waking within the same hour, like is it 6 a.m., is it 7 a.m., about the same time, even on weekends, get the morning sunlight. Consider the calming adaptogens like ashwagandha that I talked about before, and even nutrients like phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine can help with modulating and bringing down that evening cortisol. If your mind is racing, L-theanine. If you've got the low progesterone issues, bring in the passion flower, like get that like sleep cocktail going. But it's more than just taking supplements, right? You also need to create a screen-free wind down routine and give signals that your nervous system is safe, that your body is safe. So it's not just about sleep hygiene. It's about giving your adrenal glands a rhythm and a routine that they can trust, because disrupted circadian rhythm, really these disrupted routines, they can be a type of stress. So let's go through a routine, because I think that would be helpful. And you can let me know, are you doing this routine already? I'd love to hear in the comments. Are you already doing this routine? Do you have something similar? Are you going to try this out? If you try it out, tell me how it works. So when you wake up in the morning, within 30 minutes of waking, we want to get morning sunlight and start fueling our body. Your body needs to get the signal the day has started, and that means fueling, not fasting. So I want you to eat a protein-rich breakfast within 30 minutes of waking, if possible. This is going to prevent a cortisol spike, because your cortisol will spike when your blood sugar starts to get low. So we want to aim, maybe it's not 30 grams, at least 20 grams. But so let's say aim 20 to 30 grams of protein, eggs, Greek yogurt, protein shake, leftovers for dinner. If you heard my episode with Liz Wolfe, she does protein powder into orange juice, which vitamin C, baby, that's going to support your adrenal glands. Why do I want you to avoid fasting? Okay. Fasting when you have adrenal issues is going to push your body into stress mode. Fasting is a form of stress. It's a good stress done at the right time, but if you're already having cortisol problems, without fuel, your body is going to rely on cortisol to raise your blood sugar. So your cortisol is going to come up, your stress hormones are going to come up. It's going to tell your liver, give it up, baby, give me some sugar into my bloodstream. And that is going to make the very problem you're trying to fix so much worse. If you are taking adaptogenic herbs, you're taking something like my adrenal support, you're taking B vitamins, you're going to do that first thing in the morning after breakfast, okay? So why I say that is especially anything with B vitamins, that can cause an upset stomach. I am someone, so I take adrenal support and Be Active Plus in the morning. If I don't have food in my stomach, I am so sick, and I'll be in like a 10 a.m. meeting and I'm like, why do I feel like I'm going to throw up? B vitamins. Now, I love a B complex, like the Be Active Plus, but if you're like, what are like the two B vitamins? If you had to pick two, I would say B5 and B6 support the adrenal glands. And B6 is going to help with that conversion of getting into melatonin. It's going to help with your progesterone. So if I only had to pick two, that would be two. But B vitamins work together in a lot of processes. So that's why I prefer a B complex. Okay, so we're doing the wake up, we eat food, we take our supplements, and then maybe that's when you get your morning sunlight. If you want to drink coffee out in the sunshine, do it. If you want to go outside for a 10 to 20 minute walk, no glasses on in the first hour of waking, do that. But we need to be getting sunlight and food to tell the brain and the adrenal glands and our entire hormonal system, like, this is the time that we are awake. Now, following eating, that's when you want to do an exercise. So maybe you're doing that midday, maybe you're doing it in the morning. You want to move your body earlier in the day though. Strength training, moderate cardio, get it all in before 2 p.m. Again, we want to support the healthy cortisol cycling. Definitely avoid intense workouts before bed if you're struggling to sleep. Like if you're someone who like gets off of work and then you do an intense workout at 7 p.m. and you're not sleeping, you might want to just check that one. And maybe you want to do yoga. Mobility exercises are great at any age. It's a great thing to do before bed. So if you do need movement at the end of the day, keep it more gentle. Now, throughout your day, eat regular meals, protein, fiber, fat, no skipping lunch, no just having coffee, no just having a donut. I know I hate on the donuts all the time. Donuts are good, but they're not good on their own if you're having issues with cortisol, because if you destabilize your blood sugar, you will destabilize your stress response and your cortisol health. So steady blood sugar, steady cortisol. We love that. So in the evening, this is where you want to start focusing on winding down, and we want to eat a good dinner. So eat dinner on time and don't graze afterwards. We want to finish our last meal within 2 to 3 hours before bed, because that can disrupt sleep if we eat too close to bed. And we want to make sure that dinner is structured to have things like sweet potatoes, rice, quinoa, like carbs that support serotonin and a calm brain. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. It can be a small amount. And then we want to have that protein, and we want to have fiber-rich food as well. Now, in the evening, like dinner or a few hours before dinner, this is when you might want to take your phosphatidylserine, your ashwagandha, your L-theanine, your passion flower, all those things that we have talked about. I take my adrenal calm about an hour before bed, and then I like to get in bed and read. It works for me. I can fall asleep. If you follow me online, you know I read romantasy, and I laugh because I'm like, I will get to a spicy scene and I will be totally nodding off. I'm like, clearly this does not do it for me. Anyhow, so you want to make sure you take your supplements. And then again, you can do your gentle yoga, journaling, maybe do legs up the wall. That's so great at the end of the day for your nervous system. Try to do 5 minutes of deep breathing if you can. And then, maybe it's like doing a puzzle, reading, things that just start to calm your nervous system and get you in the rhythm for sleep. The goal in the evening is to cue safety. It's the signal, the certain nervous system that get vulnerable, baby. It's okay. You're safe. Go to sleep. And then within an hour of bed, this is where we want to start dimming the lights. If you're going to watch TV, nothing that amps you up, wear blue light blocking glasses, or, if you're on your phone, have the tinted apps. So ideally after 8 p.m., but most of my patients are like, I can do this within an hour. So within an hour, ideally before 8, but choice is yours. Now, for bedtime, ideally, we want to go to bed between 9:30, 10:30 p.m., we want to be in bed before our second wind hits. If you've ever had adrenal issues, you know what I'm talking about. Let me say this. If you're a parent and your child has ever been tired, but then you miss nap window and then they seem manic, they seem just outrageous, over the top, they're emotionally breaking down, that's that second wind of cortisol coming on. We are perpetual toddlers, okay? Toddlers don't want to go to bed. They don't want the bedtime routine. And adults do the same thing. Toddlers get a second wind. Adults get a second wind as well. So if your body's starting to feel tired, go to sleep. I don't care if there's laundry. People can wear wrinkled clothes, okay? Go to sleep. Because if you've got cortisol problems and you delay that, you're going to get a second wind. The body's going to be like, oh, I thought we were going to bed. We're not going to bed? Spike the cortisol. And then you're like, no, but my body's so tired. And you can feel weepy like that. But your cortisol is off the chain. And again, as we talked about, those progesterone and those estrogen issues, stress can be at the root of that. So by skipping your sleep, you're going to cause more hormone problems in the future. I hate to be the one to tell you that. Now, humans do better with a cool, dark, quiet room. Sometimes we need noise machines, noise canceling machines, white noise. That's what I'm trying to say. And sometimes you got to run the AC. Sometimes you sleep with only a sheet on, and then it's got to be dark. Wear an eye mask if you can't keep your room dark. Now, The thing that I didn't mention, I should have mentioned, is that magnesium. I had said magnesium glycinate before. That one, taking at dinner or taking like within an hour of bed. A lot of people don't have tummy troubles when they take tummy troubles. I'm such a mom. But a lot of people don't have issues with magnesium on an empty stomach. So it's just about what's true for you, what works for you. But I realized I didn't mention the magnesium. So in summary of our like adrenal supportive day for better sleep, I want you to know you don't fix cortisol with a single supplement. You do it actually by living in rhythm every day, eating consistently every day, waking with the light, moving wisely, winding down with intention. And if you're going to supplementing at the right times with the right supplements to fit your needs. But I don't ever want anyone to think I can just out supplement a poor diet and lifestyle, because you can't. Now that you have listened to this episode, you understand how progesterone, estrogen, and cortisol all impact your sleep, and you've got some things to do, some homework, if you will. No one likes homework, but some tools to help you sleep. You've got a great foundation, honestly, to start making changes to really work with your hormones. And listen, I do get asked all the time, if there was just one supplement you'd recommend for sleep, what would it be? Because I know I listed off a ton. It would be magnesium, hands down, specifically magnesium glycinate, not just because it's going to support melatonin, it's going to support healthy neurotransmitters, but it's also calming the nervous system. It supports with hormone metabolism. It's going to help your adrenal glands function. Really, overall, magnesium is one we can all benefit from. So I just want to say that because if you did feel overwhelmed in this episode, magnesium would be the one. Okay, so this is just the beginning of you starting to understand the sleep puzzle, like what is going on with your sleep. In part 2, I'm going to be sharing 3 commonly overlooked but very real reasons you still might not be sleeping. We're going to talk about blood sugar crashes at night, exactly what to do about that. Histamine surges that literally nobody is talking about, but is such a problem for women who are dealing with high estrogen, poor estrogen clearance, neurodivergent women, women with PMDD. And then we're also going to talk about what happens when you have ADHD and neurodivergence in the mix. So definitely make sure you follow, you subscribe to the show. You definitely don't want to miss this next episode. And if this episode you're listening to right now helped you, please take a moment to leave a review. It's the best way to help other women discover this information, and leaving me a review shows me tremendous support, and I'm super grateful for it. It makes me feel amazing, because me and my team do work really hard to bring you the best information. So thank you so much for being here. Please let me know if this information has helped you, and I will see you in part 2. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. If you could like, subscribe, or leave a review, it helps me so much in getting this information out to everyone who needs it. If you enjoyed this conversation, then I definitely want you to check out this.